If you just
We're
do it,
live.
it'll turn out okay. Welcome.
Hello.
Like to
All right.
introduce my guests. You, you might
Sorry.
get
Sorry. You go ahead, Vandalia. You're running the show.
all right. Uh, we're back for our dinosaur mini series, and you know our normal guest, Doc Dino, but we have another guest today.
Uh,
Yes.
Hello. I am Dominic. I was here for Doc's Sea Monsters thing, and I was invited again, which is why this stream is 2 hours late. I'm sorry. Um, I am a
Happens.
studying. I'll call myself vertebrate preparator for paleontology. Um, Other things might be happening later, but I am not at liberty to say those things, or the place I'm working for isn't at liberty. So,
Uh,
Hmm.
well, today our mini series is doing a mini series.
Well, sort of. I'd call it more just a series within a series, but I mean either works, I guess. We do have a. We are going to be breaking our normal format, and we'll be going over that shortly. Before we do get started, I guess for any new viewers for either of the channels, uh, this is Talking Time with Caffeine. It's a podcast that Vandalia up here runs. For
Yep.
about the last year or so, we've been occasionally doing streams talking about groups of extinct animals, usually dinosaurs, but we did also have a sea monster special where we looked at the weird and wacky marine reptiles from the Mesozoic. And today, we are finally going to be touching on the living dinosaurs, or at least their extinct ancestors.
Yeah. So this is the only group of theropods we haven't done yet.
Yes, it is the only one we haven't done yet. That said, it is a very large group. It's very expansive, very diverse,
yes.
and there's going to be a lot to talk about. So, if we're ready to get started, we should probably get started. If everyone's already ready and all that.
Yep. I'm ready. If I'm ready, if you're ready. Oh, by the way, my camera's
Mhm.
broken today, apparently. So you won't get to see my handsome face today.
Well, they'll see it for the outro.
Oh yeah. I,
That's true.
And really quick to answer Caden's question in the chat, what is Dom's channel? Dom, I don't believe you have your own channel, but we do run one together whenever we decide to revive it from the dead.
Yeah, no, I do not have a channel. I've tried in the past and will be in the future, but I will not say the name of that due to other things that that channel will be a part of. But yeah, I don't have a channel. I joined Doc because Doc asked, basically.
Yeah, I mean we kind of met through another few paleontologists, and yeah,
Yep.
we started a little channel with a little series that we might revive again sometime soon. Last month we did a review of the Walking with Dinosaurs trailer, and we are currently hesitantly excited,
Discussing.
I guess.
The Spinosaurus clip has put me more at ease than the Rex clip.
Yeah, the Rex is rough.
PNG Inferno's Rackham.
Well, at any rate,
Yes.
time to get to the dinosaurs. Well, sort of. We're going to go over the overall structure of this presentation, and then we're going to get into the dinosaurs.
uh,
First thing I do want to say here, there's going to be a ton of art in this by Joanna Kobierska up here. She's a Polish artist who does fabulous work with 3D models. And she's just happened to do a lot of stunning pieces on Coelurosauria.
Verb.
It's pretty great.
at
All right. As for the agenda today, we're looking at origin stories, to use a movie term here. So far in this series, we've just focused on one major clade at a time. We did allosaurs, megalosaurs, etc. But today, we are just going to be going over the origins of the remaining groups of dinosaurs. Because they all have fairly similar origins, but they diverge among a ton of really unique and weird paths. With that said, we are going to be starting from the basalmost members of the group down here in this area, which actually are not shown on this little cladogram, but we'll get to them. And we'll be ending with the birds. So the
Alright.
origin of the modern dinosaurs.
Burb.
So did this group appear before or after before in the Jurassic or the Jurassic?
We don't
The
know. There's
oh,
a ghost lineage that is guessed to the early Jurassic. What's the earliest Coelurosauria we have is Middle Jurassic, right? Or is it
yep,
late?
they're Middle Jurassic.
Okay,
Middle, yeah.
so I didn't know. I was wondering if they appeared before or after the big Pangea split.
After,
That
as far as we know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we found one just before it.
All right,
yes, I would have to, yeah.
all right. So
Yeah.
were these more Gondwana or
Oh,
Eurasia?
these are everywhere.
Everywhere,
Okay.
every continent.
It
Um,
seems that at least during the mid-Cretaceous, they're more, um, was it Laurasia? That's the north one, or is it Lauramedia?
uh, sorry, what was that?
Because it's Gondwana, and then the top one.
Laurasia.
Laurasia is Laurasia. It seems during the mid-Cretaceous, there's a slight downcrease in Gondwana, but not by much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all of the groups we'll be covering today, with one exception, are around all the way to the end of dinosaurs. Most of them appear either in the middle or late Jurassic or early
Okay.
Cretaceous, although they probably diverged earlier. We just don't have the roots of those groups.
Or we do, and we can't identify them because it's so basal.
We'll get into one of those examples later.
Exactly.
And as for, well, we usually talk about what makes a group a group. Coelurosaurs, compared to all of the other theropods we've covered so far, have hyper pneumatized skeletons. So that means just about every bone is filled with air spaces. It really helps lighten the skeleton. Not all of them are fast, but they're generally pretty agile, at least in the basal members. And a lot of them get big independently. Weirdly enough.
Yes.
This is also, like, this entire group, every single clade within this group is confirmed to have feathers in one way or another. So we finally have an all-feathered group of dinosaurs.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, that is true. Never mind. Yeah.
So like are these like full feathers or like pre-feathers or?
All of them at some point have a representative that was completely covered in feathers.
Alright.
Um, so for the most basal members, it's usually more like a fluffy, downy stuff, like you can see on this dinosaur here. If you're talking about like pinnaceous feathers with like a quill, those appear, I believe, up here in Panaraptora is when they appear. So everything above this node.
Yes. If ornithomimids are in Panaraptora as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Ornithomimids do have those too. But they shift around a bit. I don't think it's known in Therizinosaurs.
It's not known, but it's not unknown either. It's not unknown either, so it could be in
That's true.
If you want to follow with us, the slideshow is in the description if this is currently too small for you.
That's true. If you want to read through this yourself, read along with us, or you want to look at the cool art some of these artists do, all of those are going to be in the presentation, either as links or the name of the artist. Again, Joanna Kobierska, again, because she
And
does
uh,
fantastic work.
I
Anyway,
think Vandalia.
next slide.
Um, wait,
Oh, go ahead, Dom.
I think Vandalia asked me to open the slideshow. I cannot. I'm in a hotel room with no internet. This is the best you get for me.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately, we're
Yep.
we're working with what we have.
Yep.
yeah,
As I have the feeling I used to do this podcast on a laptop at McDonald's Wi-Fi.
yeah.
I am currently doing it on a laptop with hotel Wi-Fi. So, yeah, we got a whole spectrum here.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, Dom brought up a topic earlier that is pretty important to talk about with this whole subject. That is
Yeah.
a ghost lineage. So, when you have a gap in time between members of a certain group, the gap is called a ghost lineage. When we started out doing paleontology, we had a ton of these. We had like little bumps on the tree of life and then dotted lines between them.
Yeah.
But as we've continued to do more and more research, found new skeletons, refined our techniques, a lot of these ghost lineages shrink until they disappear. You can kind of think of it like your personal family tree. Maybe you have some ancestors who lived in France in the 17th century, and you know your family came to America from England in the 18th century, but you don't know when your family moved to England. That's a little ghost lineage there. It's only a couple generations, but it's still a gap.
Yeah.
No.
And we still have some of those ghost lineages too. Um,
Yes.
Dinosaurs are by far the worst. Their ghost lineage is the same exact evolutionary period of how whales went from little baby things to whales. So,
I think it's longer.
oh yeah, it's 10 million years longer. You're right.
Yeah. And like I said, ghost
Yeah.
lineages, they tend to be weeded out as we find new fossils because we're just filling in the gaps. They keep
Yeah.
having transitional features. Um, Going back to the previous example, maybe you do a DNA test someday and find out you have distant relatives who still live in England, and they can tell you the story of how your ancestors came from France to England. They fill in the gap.
Hmm.
And of course, just some pictures here for examples. We used to have a ghost lineage between lobe-finned fish and tetrapods. Then we found fishopods like Ichthyostega here, or Australopithecus. I believe this is a bust of Lucy.
Uh,
Intermediate in both
yeah,
behavior and form
maybe.
between humans and more basal primate or more basal apes.
Um, Probably the most famous one is Archaeopteryx or Tectonic.
But dinosaurs definitely.
Yeah.
What's what's we have what's I guess in our story hasn't came around yet.
What was that?
In our story, Archaeopteryx hasn't formed yet. Or
Oh,
It's
right. It'll be a bit before we get to Archaeopteryx. You're
oh,
right.
sorry. That's my fault. Sorry. Yeah. We're
All
stepping
right.
in it.
And in order, the groups of Coelurosauria we're going to be going through, going to go through the Compsognathids, Tyrannosauroids, Ornithomimids, basal Maniraptorans, Paraves, and Aves. And
Mhm.
I will define all of these as we continue. This is
Mhm.
just a little structure. Also, I will just say, because of the length of this presentation, we're going to be keeping questions to the end of the stream. So, folks, if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat and tag Vandalia. Vandalia, are you okay keeping track of the questions?
I will do the best I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that said, if you send in a super chat, not only does it help support the channel, it highlights your message for us, and it makes it much easier to see. So
Correct.
super chats will generally get priority. With that said, first actual dinosaur we're talking about, well, dinosaurs, are the Compsognathids, the little ankle biters. Famously, Compsognathus itself, or the Compy, was in Jurassic Park 2 and Jurassic Park 3.
The
Um,
ones that killed the little girl
she lived.
Yeah,
They say
or,
she lived,
or off screen.
but this guy died.
yeah.
And as far as we know, they weren't really venomous. That was just the thing for the movie. But
No,
well,
no,
for
no.
the
They're not
book,
venomous in the
but
movie. It's
it's
the
neat.
book that
Yes,
they're venomous in. The book is
and in
also
fact,
not.
in the book, the Compies kill Hammond.
It's also in the book they're technically not Compsognathus. They're pro-Compsognathus, which isn't a
True.
Compsognathed.
Yeah, it's not. It's a coelophysid now, I think.
Yeah, I don't. It's either a Coelophysis or a Megalosaur.
One of the two.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Um,
the Compsognathids are one of the first groups to branch off of the main Coelurosauria line. So they're pretty exemplary of the ancestral condition.
yeah.
In real life, of course, Compsognathus would have had a coat of feathers. We know that from multiple very close relatives. Most of them were really small. This clade never got big, and they are also the one of the few exceptions that died before the end of the Cretaceous.
I think they're
I
the
don't
only
believe they make it to the
exception.
end. What was
So
that?
I think they're the only exception to Coelurosaurs.
There's one more we'll be going over later.
are these the first ones to branch off from the main branch of Sortosaurus?
It
We
goes back and forth, but currently, yes.
Yes. Now, there's the second issue with compies is Compsognathids is that um, we don't know if we believe Compsognathidae is real. The issue is that most baby Coelurosaurs look like Compsognathids to people who aren't in depth in a like unless you know
Mhm.
what you're looking for or have studied a certain group for years, most baby Coelurosaurs look like Compsognathus. So much so that there are proposed things that Compsognathidae doesn't exist, and every single
Mhm.
Compsognathid is a baby of some description.
There was a very, well, in paleontology circles, a very infamous paper published last year that claimed to support that, but I've heard rumblings that there are refutations in the works.
Uh, so like
Yes.
so like that old hypothesis or theory that different dinosaurs are not different dinosaurs, but juveniles of the same other species dinosaur things.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and to be fair, some of those hypotheses do seem to hold out.
Oh,
Not all
for
of them, and
Compsognathus.
not all of them do, though, and some are contentious. And
And
because I know someone who's going to be watching this stream, that's all I want to say about that.
yeah. One of the contentious ones is actually the group's namesake. There is a hypothesis that Compsognathus itself is a young megalosaurus
Y-
because they're
yes,
found in the same hole.
but it's complicated. It is
Very,
complicated.
very.
For the purposes
Most things
of
in
this
science are
stream,
sometimes.
Yeah.
well, for the purposes of this stream, we are going to be working under the assumption that Compsognathidae is an actual family.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And it's funny that Robert in the chat says that Archaeopteryx looks a lot like Compsognathus. There was a fossil from Germany that was labeled as Compsognathus for decades before someone finally took a closer look and realized it was a featherless Archaeopteryx.
Oh.
Oh, I haven't seen that fossil yet. I need to look. I need to see that fossil.
Yep.
Was
Fossil.
that the was that the one that the creationists used to claim fraud or something?
It's one of
Probably.
them. They love to harp on it.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time that's happened with Archaeopteryx either. There was a fossil labeled as Pterodactylus that
I
also
haven't heard
later
of this
turned out to
one.
be Archaeopteryx.
I haven't heard of that one yet.
Ostrom was the one who figured it out.
Oh,
He
that's
was
cool.
visiting a collection and he realized, hey, this isn't a pterosaur. This is like a bird.
Actually, we do have evidence Compsognathid they exist because of one Compsognathid that has
Well,
evidence. Oh, we're waiting for that?
yet,
Okay.
yet. Are you
Yep.
meaning this one?
Yes, that one. Yes.
Yes. So moving on from the family, we're gonna be going. So in this stream, we're gonna talk about families, and then we're gonna go to specific examples. So Compsognathids. This is Sinosauropteryx, which is a Compsognathid. The name means the first lizard wing from China. Kind of an awkward name, but whatever. And Dom, would you like to explain how we know this has adult specimens?
We have, is it two specimens or I believe it's two, right? That we have? Is it one?
I
Okay.
think it's
We
one.
have what a believed supposed that a Sinosauropteryx female that is gravid. If you know what gravid means, gravid basically means pregnant with eggs, usually in reptiles. But
Mhm.
um, now there are debates to this, which I think are. I'm not going to get into my own opinions, but for the majority of the paleontological community believes this fossil, sorry, there's a motorcycle, fossil to be a gravid adult Sinosauropteryx. And if you're gravid, you have to
Mhm.
be at least biologically mature.
Yep. Meaning
Mhm.
you cannot be a juvenile.
Correct. It's
And
also the
okay.
first feathered dinosaur we found.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is the first feathered dinosaur we know of, or
yep.
we knew of, other than Archaeopteryx, of course.
But we didn't know Archaeopteryx was a dinosaur at the time.
Well, we knew it was a dinosaur. But complicated,
Yeah, we'll get to that.
complicated history
Um,
we don't have to get into.
yeah,
Um, but the important thing is, this is the holotype of Sinosauropteryx. This was the first one found, and it is covered in a
so
beautiful halo of feathers.
it's so pretty. It's so pretty.
Sorry. And it's not the only one we found either. We have at least one, possibly two other skeletons of Sinosauropteryx, and both of those other ones have feathers as well.
The one I know is the one where it's okay. This one's sideways. It's the one that's basically head on, and its wings are spread like, or its hands are spread like this out.
That's Sinornithosaurus.
Oh, God damn it! I mix them up all the time. Yes.
It's okay.
It's very close. No,
And
Tyrannosaurus is not close at all. I'm an idiot.
yeah. And something people will probably notice as a stream goes on, a lot of these dinosaurs are going to be from China. And the main reason for that is one, China is huge, and two, a lot of that area was experiencing a ton of volcanic activity during the Jurassic and Cretaceous. And because of that, China has a ton of ash deposits. And
Yeah,
ash is excellent for preserving small animals and tiny details.
yeah. The fossilization in the areas where Sinosauropteryx, things we'll probably talk about later, Microraptor,
Mhm.
Tyrannosaurus, and Utaranus, are based instead of proper fossilization where the bone is slowly replaced by sediment, it's more like the ash like pressing like a butterfly in a book the creature
Yep.
into the ground. So you get this beautiful, basically, they are properly bones in there, so it's not just an indentation.
Um, for a lot of them, yes, it is original bone for a lot of them
Yeah,
too.
which
And
is
it because another thing about volcanic ash, depending on what it's made of, it doesn't like to let water pass through it. It's actually very water resistant. So things can just sit.
and they can sit so well that if you mind me stealing the last bit of this, sometimes color can be preserved. And as seen with that picture, that's not a guess or a artist's rendition of what it thinks looks like. That is its coloration. We know exactly what color Sinosauropteryx looks like. It is a
Or at
bandit
least
mask
or,
with
or
a
at least what two individuals looked like, and they have the same
yes,
patterns.
yes, they do. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Um, Now take that with a grain of salt. Tech, um, Ash only preserves red, blue, sorry, red, black, and white pigment. Green and blue do not preserve well and have a faster decay rate.
Um,
Ooh,
not quite.
I'm wrong on this.
Uh,
Okay.
so so red and black. Most of the time when you have those colors in skin or hair or fur or feathers, most of the time that's due to melanin, which is a protein that your cells produce.
Yes.
For Sinosauropteryx, there is original melanin preserved that is coded for brown and red in varying shades. And then
Yes.
there are areas that don't have any melanin, so those probably were white. With that said, melanin is not the only way to get color.
Yes. Sorry.
Especially with feathers, the feathers can be structured in such a way that they bend light to produce coloration. Sometimes you can also get colors from things in your diet. That's why flamingos are pink, for example.
Yeah. I think a good example is I think blue jays. Their
Hmm.
th- their blue comes from the ref the reflection of light.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
And we have found structural colors and melanin in Microraptor, which would have been like a blackish blue with iridescence,
It's such a
and
pretty thing.
Kai Hong, which is another. I think Kai Hong is another dromaeosaur,
It's
but it had kind of a
something.
rainbow of colors.
It's something from China.
Yeah. Also, your camera is back, Vandalia.
Yeah.
Oh, you fixed it!
Huzzah.
Yay! Yeah. So that's
But
Dinosaurs, which is it's really, really pretty. The
really
other
pretty,
thing that
really important, and really cool.
yeah, it also has a bandit mask, which is the cutest thing on the planet.
Yes, this is a little red panda dinosaur that also lives in China.
It's really cute.
Now for something that's might be less cute, depending on your preferences.
One of my favorite
So,
boys. I love him.
so the first group was the first branch of Coelurosauria. Now we're getting into more derived stuff with the Tyrannosauroids.
A little bit more
And
fake.
their subtitle, I tried to make a subtitle for every group, Rulers from the Shadows. Because for most of their history, they weren't the big dogs.
Mm.
And then everything suddenly changed.
Except once, which I'm assuming we'll get to.
Perhaps we might.
Yeah.
But
Um,
anyway, I do not have to tell you people what a Tyrannosaur is. This is the dinosaur of dinosaurs group.
yep.
But
The Kings.
they weren't always like T-Rex. This is a group that actually has quite a bit of variation and quite a few painful ghost lineages, let's say.
It's not. I don't
Uh,
think it's the worst of Soloria.
Megaraptora is absolutely the worst of Coelurosaurs.
Ornithomimids aren't great either, from what I understand.
I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, we've said the name before. We already said the name. Tyrannosaurs come from an older group, or they appear to come from an older group, called the Proceratosaurs. And the Proceratosaurs split in two different directions. On one hand, you have the large-headed and bone-crushing Tyrannosaurids. On the other, you get the huge-armed, scythe-clawed Megaraptorans that look like villains from a slasher monster movie.
Probably. Mm,
A lot of them
Like,
seem to be.
but what I mean by probably as in Megaraptorans being Tyrannosaurids.
You're right. It is currently supported that they're Tyrannosaurids, or Tyrannosauroids. That
But
could hypothetically change in the future, but at the moment, that's
I
where they
don't
are placed.
see where else they could be because they're Coelurosauurs.
And they
So
don't look like anything else.
they're weird. But yeah.
But for today, we'll only be exploring the Proceratosaurs and a very basal Tyrannosaur. Like we mentioned, the Megaraptors have a massive growth or have a massive ghost lineage, it basically goes from basal proceratosaurs to about the end of the Cretaceous.
Well,
It's
the
bad.
earliest known one is
I want to
Rostion.
say 80 at most.
Uh,
So
because
are these the
Neovenator
only
isn't known.
of of Ceratosaurus that I almost said the arms became shorter than the rest of the group?
For Tyrannosaurs, yes, specifically for the
Yes.
Tyrannosauroids or Tyrannosaurids. I know what I talk about. Yeah,
Yeah, Tyrannosaurids, their arms reduce in size. Megaraptorans go the opposite.
which is very
They just
weird.
appear to have had different hunting styles or were hunting different prey. Or
My guess would be
who
different
knows, maybe
prey.
the ladies like big claws. I don't know.
My guess would be different prey
I mean, I have no.
because bone crushing and bleeding slash grappling are very different hunting styles, very different prey types.
That's true.
Mhm.
I mean, you can kind of think of Tyrannosaurs as dogs and Megaraptors like cats.
Yeah,
Or that's
exactly
kind of
like
how
that,
I think of
actually.
them.
Mhm.
Uh,
Hyenas are a better
So,
example for with that.
so the dinosaurs were the loyal companions then.
I mean, I wouldn't
Mhm.
mind having a Tyrannosaur as a pet.
I would adore Guanlong as a pet.
Oh, absolutely.
It'd be fluffy
And
boy.
as for this illustration here, this is the namesake of the group, Proceratosaurus. When it was first found, we thought it was related to Ceratosaurus because it was a
Because it had a
dinosaur with a crest.
because we're great. Well, no, it's because its crest was broken. Because Proceratosaurus, its full crest was broken when we first found it, and it just had the nose bit, which is why we thought it was a relative.
You're right. You're right. I
Yes,
wonder if it was lumped in with what's
it
that
was
thing
lumped
from
in
the
with
Morrison?
Dilophosaurus and or Celestes probably,
Yeah.
because everything was
But
a Ceratosaur.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
but of course, now we know it is not related to Ceratosaurus, at least not closely. This rendition here is from a game, Jurassic World Evolution, and this is a redesign of it with more accurate proportions and feathers, and I think it is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Now, we do mention that and actually, oh wait, is the big boy of this group later in this presentation?
Yes, he is.
Okay, then I will
Also,
wait for
super
it.
quick, thank you, Vamsy Jessica Manda, for a $20 super chat.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
yes. Thank you.
No text attached. If you had anything you'd like to say, please feel free to say it in chat and we'll highlight it. Thank you.
Why did someone just type Tanny Calagrius? That scares me.
Tanny Calagrius is sometimes recovered as a basal tyrannosauroid.
That's a name that sparks fear in most paleontologists.
Well, to be fair, so is Stokesasaurus, and that is literally an ilium.
I don't think Stokesaurus is real. That's Coelophysis that someone is an idiot about.
Well, no, it's from the Morrison, and
Oh, fuck
apparently
it is, you're
the
right.
the ilia is diagnostic as a tyrannosauroid. And
That's
I might have mentioned this to you before. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. Love you too. And love you too, Georgie, Libby, and others if you're watching. Anyway, I might have told you this, but the funny thing about Stokesaurus is that it's not one ilium. It's two ilia. From an adult and a juvenile.
Hmm.
Oh, I forgot about that. Uh,
Somehow, not only do we have a dinosaur named from one bone, but the paratype is the same single bone. It's
are we sure it's not just the
beautiful.
bone running around, like covered in flesh with eyes, just flopping
Like
around?
what's that cryptid that's literally a pair of pants?
Those are what they're called, like night crawlers. I think they're called night
I,
crawlers.
the Fresno Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
It looks like in the bottom one the tail's a little bit more puffy the top one.
Well, yeah, because there's feathers on it.
Yep, that's a creative design choice, but honestly, I'd buy it. It's pretty cute. It might be fluffy and banded like that because it's based on Sinosauropteryx, which I approve.
Yeah, because Velociraptors are the really long tail of bands.
Yeah. With that said, Proceratosaurus is not from China. It's actually from England. Weirdly enough.
Correct. It's found in the same hole as Megalosaurus and everything else. I believe.
This one is
Anyways.
from China, however.
The dragon.
And I actually learned something new when I looked up this guy's name. Because
Yeah.
usually, when it comes to species name, if a name ends in an I, especially two I's, it's usually named after someone. So I thought this was Wu Kai's colorful crown dragon. No, Wu Kai is just a word, apparently, that also ends in two I's, and it means colorful. So, Guanlong Wu Kai, the colorful crowned dragon.
The
And it's probably pretty easy to tell why it got that name.
yeah. Guanlong is, for the longest time, and probably will forever be because of pop culture, the supposed prince of Tyrannosauria.
I've never heard it called
He
that.
is. That's a name I came up with because
Oh,
because of it's how everyone sees it. We see Guanlong as the prince that will grow into the king. It's always
Here, wait,
Guanlong. If
sick.
ever any of the others, it's always
Um,
Guanlong.
Vandalia, is his audio coming in like scratchy to you, or is it just me?
A little bit.
Oh, is that better? Hello, hello, hello.
No. Is it picking up? Is it picking up audio from your earbud or from your phone?
Earbud. A Caden just said the footage became really blurry.
Oh, it goes in and out of focus. It's fine. We're tiny on the screen. It's not a big deal.
Is that better?
That's much better, actually.
Okay, then. I will use this. I'll use my phone instead of my headphones instead.
Okay. Anyway, what is Guanlong? Well, it's a very well-studied Proceratosaur. It was a small theropod. The largest individual is about 11 feet long. So, pretty small for a theropod. Or, it's not a giant, at least.
No.
It lived during the Middle Jurassic, about 160 million years ago, which also makes it one of the oldest Coelurosaurs we know of. And
Mhm.
that's just over halfway through the age of dinosaurs, so that's saying something. And we have two skeletons with a very interesting story for how they were formed.
The death trap.
Yes. It seems that both of these animals were attracted to a sauropod footprint. This footprint was really deep in the sediment. It might have been super muddy or something like that.
12
But
feet
the sauropod got its leg out. Yeah, massive. Like, this would have been a huge sauropod.
It's probably Momentosaurus, right? Because they're in the same place.
Probably, or at least a Mamenchisaurid.
Yeah.
And this very deep footprint was filled with watery mud. And a few other dinosaurs, including Lemusaurus, which we talked about that nightmare a couple months ago.
Why does it do that?
So is this similar
We're
to
not going to get into it. We're not going to get into it. It's horrible. Watch the video
So
on
is this
Ceratosaurs if you want to hurt your brain.
the tar pits of the mammals?
Yes, it's exactly like that. Yes, it was.
Yes.
It was probably, and with how it was with Lemusaurus on the bottom and a few other things, it probably was the exact same way. It probably was a herbivore or small creature fell in first, and then the predators came and killed themselves trying to get in.
Yeah. Either, well, at least the juvenile might have fallen into the pit and not been able to get out. The adult
Yeah.
is pretty near the top, so it's likely it was just kind of mired in the muck.
Yeah.
And actually, there's apparently evidence that the adult probably trampled the juvenile after it fell in.
Oh, yeah, they're probably moving together, weren't they? And the adult actually was strong enough to at least slightly get out, and then accidentally killed its younger thing.
I'm not sure if it was dead or not already, but it was definitely messed up by the adult moving around.
Possible idea,
Possibly.
but yes.
And this is actually well, not exactly common, but a pretty well-known type of preservation called a predator trap,
Mhm.
which, as Vandalia alluded to, the La Brea tar pits is probably the most famous predator trap.
The most
Prey animal gets
famous.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, prey animal gets stuck. Predators either hear it struggling or smell its dead body, and they get stuck trying to eat it.
It's
And
why
more predators come, and more predators come.
it's why the tar pits are very predator focused. And for
Yes.
some reason, this is a new thing, like not new in the paleontological sphere of, maybe America wasn't filled with what it's like 100 dire wolves per one bison.
I I wouldn't say it's new, but yeah, uh,
Yeah,
Pleistocene North America was not 80% predators.
that was an 80% dire wolf. But yeah,
Oh, the predator biota might have been 80% direwolf,
although that's probably true.
at
But
least the
yeah,
large predators. But
um,
yeah, I know what you mean.
they're biased. Predator traps are very biased towards predators for obvious reasons. They're traps for
Mhm.
them. I can't think of a single other predator trap that isn't the footsteps or tar pits.
I know there are others. I would have to look them up though.
Yeah, they're not that famous. The tar pits tend to take all of it.
Oh,
Like before the dinosaurs, like in the Permian or the Carboniferous, no predator traps there.
um,
No, we would be
not
lucky
that
if we
I
got one.
not that I know of. There is actually in the state of Wyoming where I am right now. There is a cave that has a few cave bear bones and a ton of American lion bones.
Yeah, that'd do it.
And it's hypothesized that like some bears lived in that cave and maybe some died, and then a whole bunch of American lions tried to get them and got stuck.
I was gonna say the Cleveland Lloyd might be a predator trap because it's
It
just Allosaurus.
it's contentious. There's multiple
Yes, the
interpretations.
multiple interpretations, but it being a
But
predator
anyway,
trap. Yeah, sorry.
it's okay.
Mm.
Guanlong might be one of the most famous Proceratosaurs, but it's definitely not the biggest.
Before we go
Dom,
on,
would you like to?
I will,
Sorry.
but I will mention before that Guanlong shows a weird thing that all tyrannosaurs do greatly, and tyrannosaurs love to do one thing, and that's grow things on their head.
Yes, I. We've talked before about other groups of theropods that got crests or horns. Tyrannosaurs do all of them, sometimes at the same time.
Yes, and we'll get to him next, I believe.
Yes, would you like to tell people about
I would
the
love him.
beautiful feathered tyrant?
Yes, this is Utyrannus, who is one of the most famous dinosaurs of the 20th century, 21st century, excuse me. As it is the first example, actually, a first example of multiple things. First example of a large Proceratosaurid, and first and by far the biggest feathered dinosaur we have evidence of being completely covered in feathers.
Yes.
Now it's also discovered in a very weird spot for what it is. So Doc alluded earlier that ash and something else in China, which is a lot of ponds and lakes, are very good at preserving small things with a lot of detail. So it's very surprising when, while digging that thing, we find a 40-foot long animal, two of them actually next to each
30,
other.
but yes.
30-foot long, and two of them next to each other, and there's two. With beautiful. If the original fossil picture isn't shared very much because the bones have been taken out and mounted, but
There's three.
I
And
didn't.
each one of them. So not only is there three, each one has has feather impressions on different parts of the body
Yes, correct.
that match together to show the whole thing.
Yeah, it has proper like pronaceous feathers on the wing on the I see wings on the arms, right?
No. They're a kind of weird feather structure. They're really long. Think like hair on a yak.
Oh
Like just
yes,
very long
yeah.
and thick.
Yeah, and Utyrannus was also the sort of a paleo meme Because before it was very uncommon for anything bigger than a raptor to be depicted with feathers. And then we found Utyrannus,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden, every single large creature on the planet, every large dinosaur, was being covered in feathers, at least Coelurosauриans. And you've probably seen, like, chicken wrecks come from it. That is probably
There are
Utyrannus' fault.
memes.
Yeah.
Here,
Now,
I found one here. I'll just show it.
Jeez, that's a perfect example. Thank you. I love that. It's a borb.
Yeah, which to be clear, not the case for T Rex,
No.
but I think it's a funny meme that sometimes gets taken a
Yeah.
little far.
And
on, on the bottom picture,
Mhm.
it looks like the way the Tyrannosaurus Rex used to look like in cartoons and art pictures. Where they're staying more upright than they are now.
uh,
So
that's in reference
so
to the
that's
mount.
well, so for this one, it's like jumping. This is the title of this piece by Mark Whitten, I think, is mating display, like Utyrannus mating display. So it's
Uh,
like jumping around and flaring out its arms to like
it's
look impressive.
it's also the exact posture that the mount with the two Utyrannuses in every single museum it looks like.
But you know what I mean. In those old cartoons, they stand differently than they do
Yeah,
in modern ones.
Yeah,
yeah.
I see what you mean, but
Yeah.
and this is the skeleton. This is the cast that
It's so pretty.
Dom is talking about.
Actually, and that
Which
cast shows something that's very interesting. Doc mentioned earlier that some Tyrannosaurs do both. Utyrannus is one of them. Utyrannus has the midline ridge of very small but noticeable bumps, and then two lacrimal horns above its eyes. So
yep,
it appears that as Tyrannosaurs get bigger, they lose their midline crest and grow horns.
yep.
Hmm.
They they
As
just
we mentioned
it's a
the movies
thing they do,
before,
and they do it over and over and over again,
They love
independently of each
they
other.
love to do it. Like a different
since
thing
we
we'll get to
mentioned the
later.
movies before about Tyrannosaurus and Jurassic Park, where did they get that idea from about the staying still thing?
That's a movie thing online.
Well,
That's a
it
plot.
oh,
What?
okay. So that's a thing in the book, and it was
Oh,
also in the movie.
yeah.
But where they
In
get
the
was this an idea that they get from real life animals or something?
so in the book, Grant makes that hypothesis after the T-Rex stares at him for a minute and then walks away. It doesn't eat him.
Yeah.
He makes that hypothesis because he knows that there is frog DNA in some of these dinosaurs.
And frogs do have
How,
vision
well,
based on movement, but
I mean, not not really. So they can see things that aren't moving. If they couldn't, that would be really, really weird. It's more so when things move, your eye is drawn to that movement.
I
It's
think
just
it's
how your brain works, and frogs especially react to movement.
yeah. The frogs are also very reactive. If you move your finger in front of a frog, it will usually jump for it, because frogs are
Mhm.
stupid, and they
Yes.
believe anything that moves that's very slightly smaller than their mouth, they will try to fit it in their mouth.
Yes. Now, with that said, in the sequel book, so the Lost World book, Crichton parodies that explanation himself
Mhm.
because he has some people try to stand still in front of a very angry T-Rex, and it eats one of them.
Yeah.
And he explains it in that book too by the T-Rex in Jurassic Park probably just wasn't hungry because it had just eaten.
Yeah.
This Rex was very angry because these humans had hurt its baby.
Yeah. But yeah,
So
Utyrannus.
yes, yes. Also, apparently we do have some little kids watching, so we will be good on the language and things.
I haven't done anything yet, and I don't plan on it. I am in a hotel room. I'm being courteous.
Fair, fair, fair. Anyway, Utranus is unique for another different reason, and that's because it's hypothesized that its fossils were deposited in a high altitude lake, and there are temperature indicators for this area that seem to indicate a temperature around like the state of May. So it probably got snow during the winter, even if it had warm summers.
It's a match for Boston, actually, almost exactly.
Yep. So
Yeah.
apparently the first real tyrant liked to wear a big fluffy coat,
Yeah, when
at
when
least
it
in the
got
winter.
cold, at least. Now there's actually been a not hypothesis, but a weird theory that maybe Uranus at least partially shed its coat during the summer because a summer in Boston and Maine is like 70 degrees. So
Yeah, it's definitely
Fahrenheit.
possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
but for the record, though, Uranus does not seem to be ancestral to the Tyrannosaurids. The Proceratosaurs did split, but most of them died out. As for the Tyrannosaurids themselves, though, we have this little guy. So this is Suski hazeli, or Hazel's Tyrant Coyote,
Yep.
which I think is a fabulous name.
For a creature we know very little about.
Well, we actually do have quite a bit of the skeleton. It's broken
Yes.
apart, but we do have most of the skeletons split between two different individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Suski Tyrannus, with that said, is even smaller than Guanlong is. And this one appears to be on the Tyrannosaur line. So the actual Tyrannosaurs appear to have started out really small and really fast, too. And here's the thing we haven't really talked about for a lot of theropods. Most of them weren't very speedy. They didn't
Yes.
really have to be. Tyrannosaurs, at least when they start, are very fast. And some of the later members might have been some of the fastest dinosaurs to ever live.
I
Which is
don't
kind of weird to think about.
I don't think it's they start out fast. I think it's they stay fast, or at least mostly, and T Rex is the weird one. Because even
We'll
like
get to that when we
Alberto's
get to derived Tyrannosaurs.
yes, because even some derived tyrannosaurs are pretty built for speed, and then there's the weird O's.
That's true.
So were they
Yeah.
fast chasing things or running away from things?
Chasing, probably.
Probably chasing.
Yeah.
But they did have to run from larger predators in their environment, of course.
Yeah. But you tend to evolve speed if you evolve speed for one of two reasons. You are chasing something or you are being chased by something already built for speed. Otherwise you tend to not
Yeah.
build for speed. You tend to build for stamina.
Because running is very energy intensive.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of energy. So there needs to be either some big reward for your speed or you're avoiding a big risk with your speed.
So
Correct.
there had to be some. There had to be some plant eaters that were runners because a lot of ones we talked about so far are either like sauropods, like they're built like tanks, or they're like there's Stegosauruses and Triceratops that don't need to run. 'Cause-
It actually might not have been even dinosaurs that early tyrannosaurs were going after. It might have been the early mammals.
Yeah, or both.
Yeah.
And you're right, Vandalia, there were a lot of really speedy herbivores. Especially with the ornithischians, a lot of them start out speedy and then
That's
they
true.
slow down. But
Yeah.
we do still have quick little things all the way to the end. They're nested within larger groups, so we didn't cover them a ton.
Yeah. There's other weird things on like Antarctica or Australia that are weird.
That's true.
Um,
With that said, Suski tyrannus, about the same size as a coyote, actually, hence the name. But even though it's so small and so early, it possesses some traits that are going to be very familiar when we get into more derived tyrannosaurs. Compared to the Proceratosaurs, Suskityrannus has a much more reinforced skull,
Mm-hmm.
shorter arms, longer legs, and a stronger bite. It
Yes.
also doesn't have the big, tall head crest that's very common in Proceratosaurs.
So is this guy protecting or eating that egg?
Oh, definitely eating.
Definitely eating. It's getting chased by a Zuniceratops.
Yeah.
And something to note, the skeleton of Suskityrannus has a weird feature in its foot. And it's a long name. It's called an arctometatarsus. And
Aha.
it just means that the base of the middle toe, here, I'll put my fingers up, the base of the middle toe pinches out between the others.
Yeah.
And it's very common in animals that seem to be very fast runners, at least when it comes to dinosaurs.
You can actually see this a bit in if you have chickens. It's not as pronounced, but chickens when they walk, their toe tends to be very slightly longer. If you don't have a very bred chicken, like highly domesticated. The other thing, if have you ever seen the bottom of an emu or ostrich foot, they have it properly.
I thought they had fused metatarsals.
Well, I might be wrong, but they have a similar functioning thing that
Sure.
at least, yeah,
At
run
least
fast.
superficially.
Yeah.
Yes. And just within the dinosaurs, this feature seems to have evolved independently 3 different times.
At
We'll get to
least
the other 2 later, but tyrannosaurs are the first.
they appear to be. Yeah,
Well, the first in the list.
that's true.
And already, here's number 2.
Chicken.
So, yes, El Chicon. The ornithomimids. In other words, gotta go fast.
Or more like
Mhm.
ostriches and
I had to
chickens?
say it.
True.
Well, I mean, this isn't Struthiomimus. This is actually Gallimimus. So it is chicken.
Ghana is the chicken, but yeah. Um,
But if there was an award for a dinosaur track star, the prize would almost definitely go to an ornithomimid.
oh,
As soon as they appear in the fossil record, they are leggy and they are quick.
they're probably
in
also
general,
they're probably also very stamina
Go ahead.
efficient too. These are probably very comparable to modern day horses or gazelle or pronghorn.
or ostriches.
Yeah, ostrich is a pretty good one too.
Yeah. In general, most, if not all, of these animals appear to have been herbivorous, and some might have been filter feeders. And for the record, those really long legs they have, which aren't really shown in that picture, I'm just realizing,
They aren't.
they're really good for running, but they're also really good for wading. But it's only a couple of them that are thought to be semi-aquatic,
Yeah,
at least
and
currently.
ornithomimids are the first example of Coelurosaurs starting small, having one main trait, and then just getting gigantic and awful looking.
Oh, we'll get to the big duck eventually.
Yes, but it's a good thing to show that Coelurosaurs have a tendency to do this a lot more than other theropods and even dinosaur species in general. They tend to pick a thing and then get really big. Not fast, but really big. Always.
Yeah, they have a weird tendency to lose speed and get huge,
Yes, it
while
happens
still
with
having speedy members of the group.
5-6 times if we don't include modern birds. Yeah.
And now, with that said, the ornithomimids have 2 major branches, but we're only going to be looking at one today, because one of them appears right at the end of the Cretaceous, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But all of them have a fairly similar body plan, at least in the broad strokes. They have a very tall, very upright posture, a very long neck, but a short tail, and huge arms with really big claws. All of them have big claws,
Yeah, they do.
some bigger than others.
Yeah.
And for our example of an ornithomimid, we have Pelecanimimus, featuring a
Boy.
little cameo from someone in a past stream.
Concavinator.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Pelecanimimus means the many-toothed pelican mimic.
His awful
And
mouth.
it has over 200 teeth. It has
Actually,
over 200 tiny peg-like teeth.
Pelecamimus is a weirdo as well because most later ornithomimids lose all their teeth.
Mhm. Yep, and I think all derived ornithomimids lose all their teeth, at least that we know of so far.
Dinochirids do, right? If so,
Yes.
then yes. Then yeah, they do.
Or I think they do.
We have like
And-
2, so it's hard to tell.
That's fair.
Um,
And that kind of brings up a question: why have so many teeth? Like, why have many tiny teeth when could big few teeth? And there have been a few hypotheses proposed. Some people think it would have captured insects. Some say they might have ate small plants that had a lot of leaves, or straining food from the water. Or it could be a combination of all three.
yeah.
Keep in mind, I did mention that these guys would have been pretty good waiters. So personally, I feel that the straining food is probably the most likely, but we can't really prove either way. At least not
Duck
at the
thing.
moment.
But probably less of a duck and more flamingo-y.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and to be fair, animals don't have to fit in little neat boxes.
No,
They could
not
have
at all.
eaten plants and insects, and in fact probably did.
Yeah. Horses eat meat, and cows, horrifically.
Mhm.
So,
Yes. They like chicken.
yeah.
Um,
Food is a spectrum.
Yeah. And Pelecanimimus is also from the early Cretaceous. And it is one of, if not the oldest ornithomimids we know of from good material. But it
Yeah.
already has just about all of the features that define the rest of its whole family.
And it should be
Except for the teeth.
appearing in the Middle Jurassic.
Yes.
So,
There's a lot of ghost lineages, unfortunately.
yeah.
But our next group might be different. Well, kinda.
Big.
So rather than going through all of the individual families, we're gonna go over a brief overview of some basal Maniraptorans and then go into specific examples.
Yep.
And the major breakdown here is small heads, weird hands. Maniraptors love to do stuff with their hands.
They do.
And for the record, everything from here on is very closely related to birds. They're more closely related to birds than any other dinosaurs. And they all have something special in their hands that gives them their name.
So,
if,
are these
go ahead.
the bird clade or the closest relations to the bird clade?
That's one more group.
Well,
One more
birds
group up.
are within Maniraptora.
But I think he's asking, is Maniraptor the closest one? Paraves is technically the closest one without being real birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're
Technical
very close to the birds.
We are, yes.
Because clades within clades, and I don't know if that was a side clade or,
Yes.
or the bigger clade.
We're looking at
phylogenetics
the
is fun.
side branches outside of the direct line to birds.
Right.
Yep.
But they all have a weird thing with their wrist. So if you put your hand like this and you try to tilt it to the side, you can only get so far with it. But with the Maniraptors, they have a weird fusion of several of their carpal bones down here that allows them to twist their hand to touch their ulna, so the outside of their arm. Very flexible. And I don't know if we're sure why that evolved exactly, but it seems to be a thing that all of them have.
The theory is grasping, right? Or or manipulating objects in your hand.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the group.
Yes, probably.
But among the basalmost members of this clade, they go one step beyond just having mobile wrists.
Mhm.
One of these groups loses all but one finger and turns its arm into a jackhammer chisel.
Yeah.
And the other one decides to turn into a giant ground sloth with
It does do
arms
that.
that are longer than their legs.
Yeah. And this is the example of them getting big for no reason. These three groups, the two of the examples on here are T-Rex sized.
Well, they eventually lead to something that's T-Rex size.
Yes, they do. And there are whispers, not found yet, but the others do it. Alvarezsaurs, which are the one finger ones. It is not off the block that there's a giant Alvarezsaur somewhere in the fossil record.
That'd be terrifying, but I haven't heard anything about that.
Nothing's been found yet, but the other two groups do it, and ornithomimids do it. So
Yeah, that's fair. But let's get into our little examples of some of the early members of these groups. And we're starting with the problem.
Haplo, yeah.
Yes, this is Haplokyrus solares, or the skilled simple hand. And this genus is a pretty interesting one because sometimes when you're dealing with basal members of a group, they're so basal, it's hard to determine which group they belong to, or if they belong to both.
Or none.
Or none! They could be a bizarre offshoot. Haplokyrus is one of these. It is often recovered as a mononychid, which are the jackhammer chisel hands I talked about earlier. But it's not always. It's been in a bunch of other groups.
It's been in Therizinosaurs, I know.
It's been Therizinosaurs, Dromaeosaurs.
I haven't even heard it's been in Dromaeosaurs. That's awful.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But for what we do know about it, Haplokyrus has a pair of very strong reinforced arms. And the claw, I believe it's on the first finger, is very big and very powerful. So if it is a mononychid, then this might be the first step towards some of the weirdest arms we know of in the animal kingdom.
Wait, which
At
claw
least at
is it?
present.
Is it the middle one?
I think it's the first.
Okay, because if it's the middle one, I believe at least Therizinosaurus does. Oh wait, no, it's not. Therizinosaurus it's the first one that's the biggest. No, that's unhelpful. Never mind, ignore me.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right, and sorry, Caden in the chat is right. This is an Alvarezsaurid, not a mononychid. Why did I say
yes,
mononychid?
I didn't even catch that. Yeah, Alvarezsaurs. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a typo. Thank you for pointing that out, Caden.
Yeah, we didn't even catch that. That's us.
Yeah, this isn't as bad as Lemusaurus, but it's a headache.
Go whip yourself for your misdeeds.
Yeah. Well, Lemusaurus is a mistake against God. So
Ceratosaurus, what did your child turn into?
why does it lose its teeth and grow a beak during development? Why? Awful.
So-
It's an awful creature.
So are these the? You mentioned the beak. Are these ones going more beak form than snout form?
Beak.
I-
Both.
It depends on the group. Most of the
Yes.
ones that become herbivores grow a beak, while most of the carnivores have a snout. That does not hold true for everyone, though,
No.
especially once we get into the actual birds.
Yeah. And the other thing is that growing a beak does not mean they lose their teeth automatically. There are many instances of having both of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's go
So
from
like
one
you
type
mentioned
of
that. So
cursed
like
creature.
all like a lot of
Go ahead.
them, these could be herbivores or carnivores. Then
Yes, a lot of
Yes.
Maniraptorans are. I don't know if we have no, we do have evidence of that, but it seems a lot of Maniraptorans appear to be, at least early stages, omnivorous, almost definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that I think Therizinosaurs, or at least derived ones, are the only ones who don't have any possibly omnivorous members.
Derived ones, yes, correct.
because I know
Yeah.
modern day birds could either eat meat or fruit or nuts and stuff.
Well, it
So
fully depends on the
Yeah.
bird, but
Yeah.
yes.
But anyway, let's go from one kind of cursed to another type of cursed.
This one
you
isn't
you,
as
you, said,
bad.
you said the bad word. You said the K word.
Oh, you did?
Huh?
Huh?
You said the K word, the kind word.
Oh.
Oh. Well, so this is Falcarius utaensis. And
Yeah.
I just want to say, Falcarius, that's a good name.
So Curious is a
Like,
great name.
some names just feel good to say. And this one's one of them. Its name translates to the Scythe Cutter of Utah. And as put by Lindsay Zano, I think this was in a press release about it, this animal is the ultimate in bizarre, a cross between an ostrich, a gorilla, and Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
See, Falcarius is an early member of the largest group of herbivorous theropods, the Therizinosaurs. And it doesn't exhibit all of their famous
Traits.
features, but it is making big strides in that direction. As an example, unlike just about every other theropod besides Spinosaurs, Falcarius's first toe, the little one on the inside of the foot, touches the ground. Its arms are huge, reinforced, and tipped with heavy claws. It has a long, slender neck, and it has a tiny head with leaf shaped teeth. And all of its descendants are going to take these features and go nuts.
Yep. Now, there's one other issue with Falcarius, technically, and that's where it's from.
It's from Utah, and almost all the rest of them are from Asia.
Yep, which, except for Nothronicus, which is so
Yep.
derived.
Yeah, there's a lot of mysteries here. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're right, actually, I know Falcarius is Cedar Mountain. How old is Nothronicus?
Nothronicus, if the documentary is to be believed, is with No, it's not is with Zuniceratops.
Zuniceratops and Suski Tyrannus.
They're the same. They're the same. Nothronicus is the same formation, I think.
Just trying to. Oh, okay. Depending on what member it belongs to, Falcarius might be contemporaneous with Nothronicus.
That's even worse.
Might. Okay, no, it belongs to an early member. It's about 30 million years older, but there was a chance.
If it was the same, that would be awful and bad.
Well, awful and worse.
Yeah.
With that said, another weird thing about Falcarius is we have hundreds of these things.
We do. I
Caries was
forgot.
found in a gigantic bone bed of at least a few hundred individuals, maybe thousands. I think, yeah, by minimum number of individuals. So, like, all, if you count the number of left femurs you have, because every animal can only have one left femur, we have at least 300 in a bone bed. So these things were roaming in massive herds, or at least appear to have been. It's kind of crazy. Are you okay, Dom? You look like you broke there for a second.
No, I'm fine. Just tired. Long day.
Okay, fair enough. Fair
Yep.
enough. We'll try not to go for another hour.
Yes, that would be preferable.
With
Oh,
that
why?
said,
That's an awful thing to go next to. Why?
so this is Incisivsaurus godiei, and I hope I'm saying that right. It
Uh,
means Godier's incisor lizard,
I think you're right.
and it's probably hard for people to tell on the stream. So I'm going to exit full screen and zoom in here. Incisivsaurus
Awful.
has these doofy little buck teeth at the front of its mouth.
It's an awful, awful creature. It has gigantic front teeth like a beaver. Why? Why?
I don't know, to hurt our
Oh.
brains, I guess.
Oh, and to answer a question that might be up of it being, it might be like a beaver. It has no semi-aquatic traits. I don't think it's even
Nope.
found in a formation with water that we know of.
I want to say it's Yishan and very little water. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is it. This is from Wikipedia. This is its head.
That's evil. That's awful.
It's horrific. And it's one of the most basal Oviraptorosaurs we know of, which is another group that is utterly cursed in every way. They are, to me, they are one of the most unnerving groups of dinosaurs.
They're the only group of dinosaurs that is evil. Actually, they are all evil. They'd be the worst things to. They lose their teeth. Just because they lose their teeth. They grow gigantic shell cracking beaks. Some of them. They can
Yep.
probably bite off your arm, and then for some ungodly reason, not one get big. We know of one giant one called Gigantoraptor, but their gigantic eggs are found everywhere. There were giant, evil, 40-foot long death parrots everywhere.
This is not the skeleton of a kind creature.
That's Anzu, right?
This is Anzu.
Yeah, that's evil. Evil. It earns its name Anzu. It means it's a demon.
This thing is the size of a polar bear.
I
But,
forgot
like,
it's just
8
like a
feet tall.
fucking. That's evil. No, evil death creature. Yeah. Oviraptorosaurs are the only.
For some reason, Restream keeps cutting off the head, so I gotta zoom
Yeah.
out a bit, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're awful.
They have giant hands. Their faces are basically
massive
pug faces.
claws.
They've
Was this the
shrunken their
thing
face.
they had in the last Jurassic Park movie with the giant scissor hand things?
That's Therizinosaurus.
No.
There
That's
is one in the new
Therizinosaurus.
Jurassic Park though. There's a little its head gets bitten off.
Yeah, a little Oviraptor.
Yeah.
Arguably the most innocent of the group, just because of what it was doing when it died.
Yeah. Conchoraptor ain't bad. The rest are.
Like, I think once they get above the size of a dog, they start getting horrific.
Well, because they'll just bite your arm in half. Because their bite force is also stupidly high for no reason. Awful.
And yeah, and they start out awful too.
Yeah. No.
Incisivsaurus is one of the oldest ones we know of. There are a few that might be a little older, but
Same time around.
pretty about. I think this one's also from the. I think it's also from the Yishan.
It's
So
from where
early
Dylong's
Cretaceous.
from. I don't know where. I don't know if you know where Dylong is off the top of your head, but it's from where Dylong is.
I mean, I know it's from Asia.
Oh, it's from Microraptor. So yeah,
Yep, Yishan.
yeah, it's Microraptor. Yeah.
So this horror show lived alongside Sinosauropteryx.
And Uranus. No, that's wrong. Uranus is J-hole.
Is it?
Uranus is J-hole, I believe. Yes, because J-hole's a lake, and Uranus was the lake.
Well, it was in a lake.
Sinosauropteryx is J-hole, right? Or is it, or is the J-hole biota in the Yishan?
It's in Yishan.
Okay, they're all evil. Okay, so this coexisted with Sinosauropteryx, Sinornithosaurus, Uranus, and a very close relative of Guanlong and Dailong.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's what a neighbor. What a neighbor.
And a flying frog creature that I don't know if you've talked about yet.
No, we haven't. We'll get to that.
The best creature to ever evolve. Anyways,
well, while Incisivsaurus is thought to be an herbivore, like Dom has alluded to, its descendants probably ate just about anything.
Yeah.
They've been proposed to eat shellfish, nuts, eggs, hence the name Oviraptorosaur, everything. And they develop some of the most cursed skulls of any dinosaur.
Awful.
Some of them re-evolve fake teeth in the roof of their mouths.
Oh, yeah, they do that. They have this one giant, flat, fake tooth. You're right, in the middle of their mouth.
In the middle of their mouth. They're
no.
horrible creatures.
Demons. They're actually demons. I'm convinced Incisivsaurus just spawned from hell. And the rest evolved from it.
Probably. And, this rendition here I wanted to include. I couldn't get a good picture of it, unfortunately.
Prehistoric Park.
This is from, Prehistoric Park, show I absolutely loved as a kid.
Very good.
This thing makes the most cursed noises.
Wow!
It's awful, but the show itself is great, though the dinosaurs could use more feathers.
So would you have to be worried about this if you met it in the wild, or would you be fine if you met it?
I think it would. How big is Incisivsaurus again?
I want to say about 3 feet tall.
I would kick it.
Here, let's see.
That's like asking, what would you do if you found a raccoon in your trash? Like, you want it away. It's evil. The raccoons are evil. But, yeah, no.
Oh, never mind. It's smaller than I thought. It's about 3 feet long, not tall.
Oh, then it's in the
small.
range of it being cute, which makes it derpy.
No. It is not within the range of it being cute.
Oh, it's a derpy evil
This is
creature.
not cute. This is horror.
That's like, it's like Pegomastax. It's like just evil. Just evil.
Well, shall we move away from the evil, at least temporarily?
Yes, and I am running out of time, so I might not be here for all of Paraves.
Okay. Well, we'll speed up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, we are finally within the Paravians. Now, before, we mentioned that Maniraptor and relationships can shuffle a little bit, they can move a little bit, and that is especially true for every group in this category. At one point or another, all of these animals have been proposed to be the closest relatives to birds. And they do not stop moving.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what parave means. Almost bird.
Oh, Yes. I will add one more thing with paraves if I leave early. Paraves. So paraves are the ones that evolve flight because aves are part of
I
paraves.
we it's on here. It's on here.
Oh, it is the fact that okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Um. So again, relationships between each group is kind of on shaky ground. That's just how closely related these things are. But the relationships within each group are fairly solid.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll be exploring the relationships between four of these groups:
Yeah.
Scansoriopterigids, Troodontids, Dromaeosaurs, and the Aviolans, which, for all intensive purposes, are birds.
True birds. Yes.
And would you like to read the fun little factoid at the bottom, Dom?
Yeah. So, most vertebrates evolve flight once if they evolve flight. Mammals do it once in bats. Pterosaurs do it. For some awful reason, um, paraves do it 4 or 5 times, and then they tend to evolve flight and then immediately become flightless again.
Yep.
So they do it
Especially
multiple times,
birds.
kind of like what insects did.
Yeah, actually, no, actually, most flying insects tend to of two groups, either dual wing or single wing.
Okay.
Paraves evolve flight the most times out of any animal species. I'm 90% positive.
Well, any type of animal, yeah.
Yeah,
And they re-evolve and lose two-wing and four-winged flight multiple times.
they do.
These
It's
aren't even the
bad.
true. These aren't even true birds, right?
No, no.
No,
True birds.
though true birds are within this group.
True birds
Oh,
are
they are
one of
within
the
the group.
times
Okay.
they evolve flight.
Well, well,
That's also iffy, but
anyway, anyway, Yi Ki,
oh yeah,
or
that's
strange wing.
meet an
Oh, I thought this was
actual
what you were
dragon.
referring to earlier.
It's not. I was referring to
Oh,
someone else.
I thought this was your flying frog.
No, I was referring to a Geholopterus. That's a wyvern. That's a
Oh,
dragon. It's a real dragon. What Yiki is.
yeah. The Scansoriopterigids are bizarre. These
Yeah.
are dinosaur bats, both in anatomy and in ecology. These tiny little dinosaurs, because these are absolutely tiny things, like the size of a finch. They flew on membranous wings like a pterosaur or like a dragon,
Yeah, they're
with a
dragons.
with a completely unique hand structure that we do not see in any other vertebrate.
Yep.
Because while Yi here does have the normal 3 fingers of most theropods, it grows a unique bone from the wrist to
To
support
make
the wing.
a pseudo. So, if you didn't know, there are many ways to make a wing. Um, Birds do it weirdly. They kind of lose all their fingers and just use feathers mostly.
Mhm.
Bats basically spread out all of their hands and connect it with that. About 4 of them, yeah. Pterosaurs just use one long finger. Scansorioptera just grow another finger for some reason.
Yeah, an unjointed finger.
Yeah, which is evil and stupid. Um,
It is. Yi also has the distinction of having the shortest possible dinosaur name you can get. At
yes.
least with the current rule set for naming animals, 2 letters are the bare minimum for a genus and a species name.
Yep.
So Yi is the genus and Kui is the species.
Yes,
Yep,
but
Yiki.
it is very special as there are a few creatures, a few dinosaurs that it is referred to by its full name, not just its genus name. Yiki's one of them. Um, a Velociraptor, and that I
T-Rex.
don't know. T Rex is another one that's very common. Spinosaurus is very common now. Spinosaurus aegypticus. And there's a Velociraptorine from Mongolia that's also like that.
Kurukula.
Yeah, Kurukola. Oh wait, no, I thought there isn't there an Oviraptor from there as well that does it.
I don't know off the top of my head.
No, either. But yeah, Curriculum. Now these are now. Yeah, so if these are creatures that tend to be, if another one is discovered, a new name will be erected instead of trying to fit it in the genus because it's genus and species names, while being genus and species, are one name basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, while this is a flying dinosaur, like some others we'll meet, Yi's descendants did not become modern birds. This lineage dies out completely sometime during the early or middle Cretaceous. So they're a tiny blip in time from one or two formations, and then they're gone. And the sad thing is, there's probably so many ancient animals that are like that, and we will never find them. It's just how it goes. Next, then, we're going to be looking at troodontids. Featuring Sinovenator changai, or Chang's hunter from China. Go figure, another Chinese dinosaur here. Sinovenator is one of the most basal troodontids that we know of, which are a group of very lightly built paravians. And like ornithomimids, they seem to have evolved for speed. This is the third group of dinosaurs that independently evolves that arctometatarsus, the pinched off middle toe. And while troodontids do have the killing claw that you see in dromaeosaurs, it's smaller for them, and the whole skeleton is usually much more lightly built and leggy. And you can't really see it in either the drawing or the skeleton here, but Sinovenator's teeth are short and sharp, but a lot of its descendants will develop these bizarre teeth with really weirdly complex shapes. A lot of them were probably omnivores too, and not including birds, they become the brainiest of all dinosaurs.
Probably.
That we know of. Then we're going to get to something a little bigger. So, weirdly enough, when you think of a raptor dinosaur, like a Velociraptor or Deinonychus, you're thinking of something that's fairly derived. The most basal dromaeosaur that we know of, or at least one of them, is Utahraptor, which also happens to be the biggest and one of the weirdest.
Dromaeosaurs do a really funny thing of doing the exact opposite of 90% of species, which is start big, get small.
Yes. At
Now, were
least
they
for
actually
the ones
from
we have in the
Utah,
fossil
or was
record.
that a name?
What was that?
I said, were they actually from Utah, or just?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, the name means Ostrom and Maize robber from Utah, actually. It's named after two different people, John Ostrom, and I forget their first name, but Maize, who did a lot of field work, sorry, got things mixed up. Maize did a lot of research on geology in Utah, and Utahraptor was named to honor his contributions to science. And basically the same thing for Ostrom. Because Ostrom is very connected to dromaeosaurs.
It also almost wasn't named this. As
True.
Utahraptor was discovered the year Jurassic Park came out, and the name and the person who named it was it Bucker or who was it?
So it was named by Kirkland,
Kirkland.
but it was discovered a few years prior. It was published in '93.
Yeah, it was published in '93, and when they were naming it and publishing it, there's a little saying going on that they found Spielberg's raptor. This was almost named Utahraptor Spielbergii.
Yep.
But they couldn't because of licensing rights.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues. And
Yeah.
honestly, I do like that they honor Ostrom in
No,
here.
Ostrom's fine.
I-
Both names
yeah,
are beautiful. I like both names. So
that's fair.
yeah.
And not only is Utahraptor a huge dromaeosaur, this is bigger than the Jurassic Park raptors.
Mm.
It's also a weird one because it's
Yes.
very heavily built and it has a lot of weird little features in its skeleton that we don't see in a lot of other dromaeosaurs or
Mhm.
that appear to independently re-evolve in other dromaeosaurs.
It's a bear. It's a bruiser of a dromaeosaur.
Yes. Um, it is not the only big one, notably, but it is both the earliest and the biggest that we know of. There
It-
are two later dromaeosaurs that get near this size, though not they don't quite reach it. And by this size, I mean about 20 feet long and weighing about a ton.
I thought
There's
that
oh, good.
even the ones that get this big don't even get close to Utahraptor's possible like mass.
Yeah, they're nowhere near as heavy.
Yeah.
And actually, there's three. I
Yeah.
forgot the third. The
You,
first is a kilobatar from Mongolia.
yep.
There's Dakota Raptor,
Hmm.
which even even if it gets a different name, it's based on some huge dromaeosaur material from the Hell Creek, so
Yep.
that existed.
And the
And
last one,
uh, there's the weird one from South America.
Ostroraptor, which for some reason is a group of dromaeosaurs called Unilogines, which for some reason become Spinosaurs.
Yep, for
Hmm.
some reason.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings up the question: why so big? Why so massive? There are a few hypotheses. For Utahraptor, at least, it seems that it might have been the apex predator in its environment.
Yeah.
So there weren't any bigger predators. So it just ate everything.
Which is probably why it was actually so big and so bulky. Again, we make the joke that raptors start big, get small. Utahraptor, Utahraptor is probably a perfect analogy of how T Rex became T Rex. It was just the biggest. It was just the best carnivore in its environment, so it became the best carnivore in its environment.
Yep. And
Yeah,
it and one of the most famous Utahraptor discoveries actually is the block,
the block is a great thing.
which, which is just this massive truck-sized block of rock, and by truck I mean semi-truck size, that has at least three individual Utahraptors inside it and a small prey animal. So it might be another predator trap. There are a few competing hypotheses for how that
Yeah,
happened.
and the
And
block's been
I don't think the
un-
block has been fully uncovered yet, has it?
it,
It's still being worked on.
it's been worked for I think 20 years, 15 years at this point because it's so much. It's a giant cube of rock, so it's really annoying for predators to get through. Because unlike most of the time, you have a general idea where the fossil is, because of how big it is, and because it's most of the fossils is inside of it. The amount of
Mhm.
it's an extra amount of work.
Yeah, you can't CT scan it. It wouldn't fit in any machine.
Correct.
And if you cut it up so you can do that, you're gonna destroy things.
Yeah. So
But anyway, it's a really cool dromaeosaur. Really, really cool. But somehow it's one of the first. And for our last critter of the evening, we have what is often found to be an aviolin. So this is, if not on the direct line leading to modern birds, very
Closest one we have.
close to that line.
yeah.
Yes. This is Anchiornis huxleyi, or Huxley's near bird. And it is named for Darwin's bulldog, Thomas Huxley. Which I think is kind of funny considering how much of an advocate he was for birds being dinosaurs.
Hmm.
And it lived about 160 million years ago, is slightly older than Archaeopteryx. And it is often recovered as the oldest known member of the aviolin line.
Yeah.
Not always, but often.
Mhm.
But regardless of its exact position, Anchiornis is an important fossil for a lot of reasons. It's
Mhm.
preserved with complete wings on both its arms and its legs, and kind of its tail.
Yep.
And the feathers are well enough preserved that this is another dinosaur where we know the original colors. This is what
Mostly. Yep.
Anchiornis looked like.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a photo of a real animal.
Yeah.
Now, with
Anchiornis
that
is
said, at least some specimens of Anchiornis have a shock of red or orange plumage on top of their head. So it might be like sexually dimorphic too, with like the males having a bright little head crest, which is really common in birds.
And if it is a bird thing, because birds seduce with their feathers, I would not put it past it that the males would either get bigger or be able to move that head crest.
That's true.
Yep.
And we have no idea what calls they might have made if they made them, but I think it's kind of fun to speculate.
Yeah. Burb.
Yeah. And with that, we have come to the end, finally.
Yes.
Part one.
Part one,
Ah,
yes.
Yes. Part one of the Coelurosaurs. So the next episode is going to focus on more derived members. I don't know if we're going to get all the way to the end of every lineage, but we'll work our way there. There's a lot of stuff still to cover.
So what do you think 2 weeks from now?
I have a lot of things coming up in the near future. I don't really want to
Well,
set
2
a
weeks is
specific
near.
time.
Yeah, I have
But-
our episode planned next week, so whatever, it had to be at least 2 weeks from now, on. But clear time to get started.
I
Anyway,
will see if I
sometime in
can
the
join
future.
as well.
All right, so
Yeah.
all right, time for questions. Anybody have questions? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Correct.
Yes. Were you collecting questions from throughout the stream?
I remembered a few, so I can answer the ones I remember. The main one I remember was someone. Actually, I can't scroll back in the. Oh, well, there's one right there. Yes, there is the theory, or sorry, the question is that why do we? Oop, I need to leave. Actually, I'm sorry.
Oh.
My roommate
It's
just
okay. It's all right. Thanks for joining us. Oh, yeah, he gone. So, was the repeated evolution and loss of avian flight possibly related to the presence of pterosaurs? Can't say for sure, but it's possible. Small pterosaurs and birds probably would have competed for the same niches, or at least similar niches. We do know that small pterosaurs start to become a lot less diverse toward the end of the Cretaceous, which is also when birds are becoming more diverse. But we can't really say for certain. A lot of the times when an animal loses the ability to fly, usually it's because it doesn't need to for its environment. And that might be because it's really leggy and it's just fine running around on the ground, or maybe it lives in an area that doesn't have many predators, so it doesn't need to fly away from predators and it can get food on the ground. Both situations have happened multiple times in all flying animals, as far as I'm aware. I think pterosaurs and maybe bats are the only groups of flying animals that don't just straight up lose flight ever that we know of currently. Have you read the recent paper related to Troodon? I have not yet. I want to sometime soon, but I have not yet. I'm kind of iffy on Troodon being revived, to be honest, just because the original one is based on a single tooth. But I don't know. I'll have to read it and see what all their methods are. I'm scrolling back through older messages I'm seeing from Caden. Have you read the study that suggests that amniotes got started much earlier than previously thought? I have not read that yet, but that doesn't really surprise me. no matter how basal an animal appears to be, we're probably never going to find the first member
Yeah,
of a new
I
group.
am sad that we don't have any. Speaking of amniotes, I'm sad that we don't have any non-amniote reptilomorphs alive still.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, closer to us than they are to amphibians, but still on the reptilomorph side.
Yeah. I'm sad we don't have the giant amphibians anymore. Used to be huge, weird amphibians. Um, so this is from a bit over an hour ago, but Eddie McCoy asked, why the name Mega, referring to Megaraptorans? The reason for that is because one of the first fossils found was just a giant claw, and it looks like a giant dromaeosaur claw, so it was assumed to be a giant dromaeosaur, a mega raptor, if you will. But then later we found more of the group, and we know that's not really the case. I will say, while we're going back through these questions, folks, if you have any burning questions to ask before the end, or you just want to thank us for putting in the work for this stream, feel free to send a super chat. We will read all of those for certain. Okay, Caden asking, Dr. Dino, you have a Facebook? I do have a Facebook. I don't have one as Dr. Dino. I have a private one. I don't have a public one. If there's a Dr. Dino Facebook account, it's not me. I'd appreciate a link to that actually if it exists. Caden also mentions the big cats are a good example of ghost lineages. I mean, kind of. We have a fairly solid cat fossil record, at least I think we do. At this point, I think it's really just the basalmost cats that are kind of fuzzy. I guess derived cats are fuzzy too. Didn't think humans have a ghost lineage. So humans kind of do, actually. Well, we did in the past, and we still kind of have one. We don't have a definitive common ancestor between humans and chimpanzees yet, and part of that's just due to preservation, because
Yeah,
a
we talked
lot of
about this a little
good.
bit. Jungles and forests are bad at preserving fossils.
They are awful at preserving fossils, and guess where most African apes live?
In the forest and jungles.
Yeah, that's also why we have next to no fossil gorillas or orangutan relatives. The few we do have are fragments, and most of them are teeth, like Gigantopithecus.
I don't
Let's
think I
see.
have any more questions right now in the past. I can see at least.
I'm looking through. Yeah, I'm looking back through the chat. I'm not seeing any more questions. So I think we're caught up.
But if you have any, always you can always in the comments in the reruns below. I will get to them
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, or feel free to send them in while we're doing our closings. We don't really mind. Do you want me to close first, or do you want to go first, Vandalia?
You can close first.
All right. Well, to the people who've been watching and listening, thank you. Honestly, Caden, I know you've been here basically the whole time. Eddie McCoy was here for a very long time too. And I know some members of my family and friends were also watching. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vandalia, for hosting this, and Dom. He's gone now, but he might watch the VOD. Thank you for coming, Dom. Really. If you want to see more... Oh, go ahead.
Always nice to have experts on here.
It's always good to have more people, yeah.
Anything up on your channel you want to advertise? That's not this.
I was going to get to that. If you like learning about dinosaurs or rocks or anything else like that, my channel is Dr. Dino, at Dr. Dino. I'm trying to do a lot more educational content now, talking about geology and prehistoric animals, all kinds of stuff. I'm still working on a pretty big video right now about how things keep evolving into crocodilians, though I am thinking of doing some more in-depth deep dives into particularly interesting fossil specimens. But we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I don't really have anything else coming up.
All right.
Caden in the chat does say, if you ever come by Utah, I'd be willing to give you a tour of the St. George Fossil Track site or Museum of Ancient Life. Hey, that sounds like a lot of fun, man. I don't anticipate being in Utah for a while, but if I ever am, I'll let you know.
All right. As for me, my channel is Ventily998. I make random videos about random topics most of the time. Obviously, I podcast this thing. I also stream games, which I'll be doing in a bit. I might be streaming a game over my Twitch channel in a bit. You want to check it out? But other than that, next week I'll be interviewing some people who do yoga. Apparently, that's
Okay.
all about. And like I said, as for this miniseries, we'll get back to you when Doc Dino is free again.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
But in the meantime, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We will see you whenever. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching my podcast or Let's Play. If you want to help support my channel, you can make a monthly or yearly pledge on Patreon, or just a one-time donation on Vimeo, PayPal, or Cash App. For those looking for something to wear, we have some shirts, hats, and other stylish things in our merch store. If you enjoy gaming, you can always follow and sub to me on Twitch. For those who don't want to give money, I have an Amazon and Steam wish list who can help the channel out. And of course, just liking, leaving a comment, and sharing this video helps more than you can imagine. And always remember to never stop learning and enjoy the randomness.